Okay, to review what we've learned in section 1, we will play to songs that have a very light feel. And to have a light feel means it is more towards the major world, and we'll use the major pentatonic scale. If a song is in minor or is very, very dark, we're going to go more towards the blues scale. And especially if it's in minor, stay only to the notes of the blues scale. Over time, you'll find a couple notes that are valid. 3-draw whole step bend, 6-draw, that's A. It's the 2nd scale degree or the 9th, depending on how you're thinking about it. It's a perfectly fine note. So little by little, once you've learned what it is, you can then start making modifications to it. We need to be aware of that when something has a light feel that is in the blues world, though, every now and again we're going to hear some bluesy chord combinations. It really gets down to what the band is playing on what is appropriate for us to play, and it's all done by feel. So if you experience it through these scales and organizing your licks as such, you'll be able to deal with it dynamically in an improvising setting. So obviously it's important for you to jam a lot to these tracks I provided to get to know really what light feels like and sounds like. And the same thing with dark and bluesy, what that feels like and sounds like and how to approach that. Because improvising all has to do with been there, done that. If you've not been there and done that, you cannot do it. So don't expect to be able to make this happen on the bandstand if you haven't experienced it in a more calm setting. Now we need to be aware of also that a lot of the feels, actually the majority of what we play as harmonica players, especially since we tend to focus on the 1950s era of playing, that a lot of the stuff we play tends to be a mixture of the two. So being able to play light only and then to play bluesy / dark only then will allow us to just think of that as a feel. Bluesy feel, that's the dark blues scale. Light feel, that's going to be more the major pentatonic feel. You've developed that sense of what it feels to play bluesy or light. And as you're playing, as you have this like, I want to make it bluesy here, and then kind of back off. Oh, they're playing something bluesy, I'm going to play something bluesy here too, and then back off. You develop that skill to be able to do that. Now, it is accurate to say, and we took a look at this in improvising study number 8, that it is a combination of ideas. When I am improvising, I am thinking of, if it's a very, very light feel, I really am thinking major pentatonic scale. I'm trying to stay within that. I am also aware of my chords. I know my GBD for my 1 chord, my CEG for my 4 chord, and my DF sharp A for my 5 chord. So even though C is not part of the scale, that would be a 4 blow, a 1 blow, 4 blow, 7 blow, 10 blow. That is not part of that scale. But because it's the root note of the 4 chord, when I go to the 4 chord, it's a very appropriate note. So I add that note. For the 5 chord, the root note is already there. But I might choose to play a 2-draw half-step bend. That's not in this scale, but it is the major third of the 5 chord. So it is an appropriate note and sounds very major. Actually ends up being the major 7th of the scale. So that's a note that's very major. So it's a combination of knowing your scale very, very well, knowing your chords very, very well, having a lick vocabulary, because you've learned 20, 30, 40, 50 songs, right? Committed some of those to memory. You've developed a good vocabulary, and you are developing now your third-person ability to be able to start on the 2-draw, focus notes, right? See where it takes you, and then you're dynamically able to match it to the feel of the song because you know the scale and you know your instrument well. Sounds a little daunting, doesn't it? But that is the next level in your studies. We follow that same approach for our blues scale, and we follow the same approach for our mixture. I recommend that you focus on very major and focus on very bluesy, using the appropriate scales. Down the road, the mixture becomes very natural. To a certain degree, we don't even need to study it. Interesting, huh? So, this is how to approach dark feels and light feels, and make sure that you're not burying your head in the sand and ignoring the fact that a song has a light feel or a dark feel. I recommend you take your jam tracks and go ahead and listen to each one, and you might categorize it as light, dark, somewhere in between. All right, let's move on to our next study.